But so many other games to talk about here. How does Pia respond from yesterday's game, David?
It's not going to be easy. I think the main lesson is to just play in the same way she played yesterday, just quicker.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get that in your mind, you lose a bit of rhythm, and it might take her some time to find her feet. Pia was so impressive, one of the players of the day. But from the start, just briefly here to recap the moves for everyone at home. We saw this game begin with d4. White starts with bishop f4. Often White starts with bringing the knight out to f3 first. It's a matter of taste. Some small move order nuances there. Black challenges the center. White develops, and after some very natural developing moves, White is the first to create a proper threat. White hits the b7 pawn. That's the downside of Black's light squared bishop coming out to g4 so early. And queen to c8. Just want to point out this position can actually be reached from the Caruana. If Black had earlier inserted a pawn trade, obviously here White could have taken on b7, but this is a main line of the Caruana, so there's lots of different, for those who play different openings, there's lots of kind of nuances to figure out. Instead, Black keeps the tension, keeps the pawns in the center. White therefore kicks away the bishop, and this is the live position. Danny, you mentioned kind of these traps, tricks. What do you think both sides should be aiming for here?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because in the London, you're focused on the dark squares in the center. At some point, often looking to put a piece on e5, and if that can accelerate things to the king side. Again, right now it would allow Black to trade on e2, but it means that there are things aggressive as even g4 in these positions, followed by knight e5 in some lines, and White can be flexible. We talked about yesterday the Botvinnik English structure being flexible for both sides of the board. The London is similar in that we can do a number of different things, and it may depend on how Black wants to approach it. I kind of like these lines for White more than I do some of the other Londons where Black has a little more of a fight over the e5 square. I think these positions are more fun to play when I do put a knight on e5 and get things going. So we'll see, but one thing we should point out is just the obvious. The bishop had to go, okay, here comes g4 as I was saying, but we're here, so let's analyze. Let's back up a couple moves. I just want to quickly point out an important, okay, they're getting
They
aggressive.
don't want you to analyze.
I wanted to point out that the bishop could not go to d3 because of c4, because I think a lot of London players who maybe at the more beginner level might have said, why did White put the bishop there? Just show very simply one of Black's goals in this move order that Fabiano's playing is literally to prevent the ideal setup of the London. That bishop would love that diagonal, not so fast here. But as we said, getting to the live spot, once you commit the bishop to e2, that doesn't mean you're playing passively. Here comes g4, here comes knight h4. This is going to be a fun game. I think you chose wisely. David, for our first game. This is going to be a fun one to have set the tone on, and we'll see where it goes.
Anna, who would you pick at this early stage, or who do you think this position is going to suit more?
I think Firouzja for this game. For some reason, I have a feeling that yesterday, even though he only lost in the Armageddon, but I think it was disappointing because in the classical game he was putting some pressure on Praggnanandhaa. Firouzja had the black pieces, and it was Praggnanandhaa who had to bail out. He himself said it in the post-game interview, but that he realized that he needs to be now looking for a way to bail out because things could get very tricky for him if he didn't do so. So the fact that Firouzja managed to put pressure on his opponent yesterday with the black pieces, but then lost in Armageddon by not realizing there's no increment that he flagged, I feel like he is back here with some more of that determination that I'm gonna score today.
Well, I wouldn't disagree. I think that, and again, it's very early on, right? We have many rounds ahead, but I agree that Firouzja's form was better than the result, right? He was the one pushing with the black pieces, or played very, very well, and ultimately lost by a second, literally got flagged, which was crazy. So, okay, Fabiano Caruana is, they say, form is temporary, class is permanent, right? Fabiano's J. Fox footwear. Great documentary about Michael J. Fox out recently on Apple. I don't know why I'm advertising that. Really into great stories.
And I'm into great jackets, and not that I know what designer brand it is, but Alireza has a great sense of fashion.
He does.
And maybe he could give me or give us a tip
Some
or two. I
fashion
didn't want to
tip.
put
We'll
you
get him
guys
in
on
here.
the spot.
But all right, let's. What is Firouzja thinking of, David? If Queen to B5 can run into these Rook G8s and Queen H4s, that is scary stuff. So is there even a prophylactic option, right? If you defend F3 with Rook F1, Black can then take on G1. You're not really solving any of the problems. Not even that Black would do that. Black might just play Rook G8 anyway, right? Just do the same plan. So this is tricky.
This is tricky. I really wonder whether Alireza has to switch gears completely and play a move such as Queen to E2. You mentioned prophylaxis. Firstly, defending the F-pawn, but also now Rook G8. I guess I can simply just take on the G6 square. I'm also wondering whether I can keep the tension with a move like Queen to F2, but for example, now taking would make a lot more sense than earlier, because taking with the H-pawn, no longer does Black have the Rook on H8. At least now you gain a bit of time with White. You can maybe swing your Rook across to start defending, Queen on G2, curl up and say, okay, I've got an extra pawn. I think he's got to be really careful here, otherwise he might just get checkmated. I don't think he can continue jumping around with the knight. Knight D6 check is just a check, the Black King moves. Knight C5 might not have enough time for that. Rook G8 threaten that checkmate again with the Queen sack. Alireza, he's been greedy, he grabbed on B7, but I think he needs to be pragmatic now and play a move like Queen to E2. Don't really see anything else.
What a fun game this has been. I feel like we chose right. We started our day with this game despite all the hype about the Magnus Carlsen Hikaru Nakamura battle for good reasons. And by the way, if you're just tuning in, we're going to Armageddon in like 5 minutes, so don't go anywhere. Here comes Armageddon between Magnus and Hikaru. But this game is delivered all day.
It has been delivering, and it still is delivering, because the position is 3 possible results. The time situation, worrisome for Fabi very much. For Alireza, also not that comfortable to make it to move 40. And as we pointed out, even when you make it to move 40, the increment is only 10 seconds. It's not that much time to use in a classical game.
Fabi looks pleased with himself. I'm not as great with body language as you, Danny, but Fabi looks pleased. He was kind of nodding his head. Now he's leaned back in his chair. Bit of a boss move there.
All right, well, we're gonna actually steal a really quick break.
Oh, suddenly his bishops, they're lined up.
Oh, Rook B7 is a problem. It skewers the bishops. He loses another piece. He's gonna resign. And oh my gosh, Alireza Firouzja snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Fabiano Caruana loses his second Armageddon